Warm welcome everyone to this webinar by the Canada-Finland Chamber of Commerce called The Future of Workplaces. And today we have a couple of panelists who will cover a couple of different areas in terms of what does the future workplace looks like. In today's agenda, after the introductions, we are heading to a panel discussion, which will be led and facilitated by our head of events, Johanna Tarvainen-Lee, followed by two separate breakout sessions. So each participant have a chance to choose which one of the sessions they want to participate, either the mind or the body, as well as then after the 20-minute discussion on those separate rooms, we would be coming back to this main room and then kind of summarizing the event and closing it. So from today, we have Antti Tuomela joining from Finland. Dr. Antti Tuomela is Chief Executive Officer as well as one of the co-founders of Spacent. He's based in Helsinki and looking after the global operations of the company. He has over 20 years experience in real estate industry and business development. Welcome, Antti.
Thank you.
From Howspace, we have Troy Pfeffer. He is the Vice President of the Partnership and Strategy for the North America. Prior his role, Troy spent 20 years working for Cintas and most recently acting as the Competitive Intelligence Director. And now as the VP of Partnership and Strategy for Howspace. Welcome, Troy.
Thank you.
From Kone, we have Kelly Leitch, local CEO of Canada operations of Kone. Kelly, in his role, oversees the operations across the service, modernization, and new equipment business lines in Canadian market. With over 20 years of industry experience, Kelly is a proven leader in operations management and business development. Warm welcome, Kelly.
Thank you very much.
From Halton Group, we have Bart Koniecek. He's the regional sales manager. Bart has a long experience in sales growth in retail and commercial segments. Having experienced a variety of work environments during his career, ranging from traditional office, Microsoft, to work from home, Whirlpool, and hybrid offices now in Halton Group. Warm welcome, Bart.
Thank you.
So Johanna, please take a lead of guiding us through the rest of the event.
Sure. So welcome on my behalf as well. This is an interesting topic, as you know. One of the reasons, let me just share my screen. One of the things that we always like to do is actually make use of this new company, Howspace, the platform, just to kind of get a feel for who you are as an audience and what questions you have. And so that's why you guys were invited to our workspace, our event page. And just judging by the poll, I mean, this is a very typical, we're fully remote, the majority of people, but of course there are that group of fully in the office or then both at home. So we have this emerging and evolving workspace and workplace. And so that's why we thought that it would be interesting to talk about this topic and also how companies are addressing, this hybrid workplace and what are the implications for actual offices. And so I'm excited to have all of these panel members here to explore different perspectives of this topic. And also thank you again for your feedback. We use this poll to kind of gauge your interest on what types of topics will be kind of focused on for the breakout session. So I appreciate that. So I'm just looking at the agenda here. I'm going to give each of the 4 panel members 5 minutes to introduce themselves and their companies. After the 5 minutes of kind of uninterrupted time for each of the panelists to introduce themselves, I'll open it up for more panel discussion and we'll go into detail on this particular topic. And feel free to submit questions, for example, through whether it's through the workspace or it's through the Zoom chat, if something that you want to kind of unpick further during the conversation, or then of course we can also have you guys come off of mute and address your question. But of course, for practicalities, keep yourself on mute for the duration of the event, just simply to minimize the background sound. So I'm actually going to mimic Marika's order in no particular order. I'll give the floor first to Antti from Spacent. And I was trying to categorize. You called yourself the real estate guy, so we'll bring in the real estate perspective, and I'll give you 5 minutes to introduce yourself before I head on to the next panel member. So Antti, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you, Johanna. Yeah, I've been a real estate guy pretty much my whole professional career, but we got this idea for Spacent at the Aalto University campus development. I was actually in charge of the second largest campus investment program in the whole Europe, which was a merger of the Helsinki University of Technology, School of Economics, and School of Arts in Finland. And it was a big investment, €500 million investment in a piece of land. And the only challenge when I started back in 2014 was that the utilization rate of the university was 24% during office hours. And that was kind of like a professional crisis. And of course, knowing as a real estate guy in the office sector, the usual utilization rates of offices has been traditionally 40 to 60% globally. And in the university sector, 20 to 30%. So obviously, thinking of this from environmental point of view, biggest industry in the world, and kind of like a lot of different metrics and so on. So we kind of like colleagues and me, we were kind of like thinking, oh, wow, this is big. We need to utilize the spaces in a different way. So we started working on this kind of like developing technology, how to actually use real estate in a different way. And this happened like 2016 and 17 and before COVID-19. And of course, we started thinking of this company and established this company in 2019. And because of COVID-19, it's such a big thing. If people would in the future work from home 2 or 3 days, 3 days a week, obviously that would mean that half of that space would be unnecessarily, or it should be used in a different way. So globally, we're kind of like talking about the biggest disruption in the biggest industry in the world at the moment. And of course, we started developing the technology before COVID-19. We have different tools for planning, using, and then managing, and for the administration of hybrid workplaces. We got funding for the company quite quickly, but then COVID-19 happened, and suddenly we became very popular. Started talking with Microsoft and different companies about Shanghai pilots and so on. So at the moment, we have the service up and running in Finland, Sweden, launching the service very soon in Toronto, also in Shanghai. Very big things are happening at the moment. And very interesting thing is that a lot of the companies, only like 25% have only set policies for the hybrid workplaces for the future. And it's been interesting talking with the clients. It's like, how do they actually apply in real world? Because it's like, there are different industries. Of course, we know that, for example, finance industry is kind of like the biggest supporter of people working from home, and the technology industries. But in the end, we believe that the people are actually super important. There are different situations at home. Some people have small kids at home. Some people are salespeople, different cultures, different cities. We're actually working with Microsoft in Shanghai, and the US policies of that company doesn't necessarily apply in China. Smaller apartments, you have like grandparents living in the same room and so on. So it's super interesting at the moment. So we're launching the service in Shanghai. Because of our university background, we're discussing with the 3 different universities in GTA area, 10 different campuses. We have surplus spaces of different large occupiers, and obviously combining co-working for that as well. And George Horhoda, who's actually joining this session, is heading our operations there. So this was kind of like briefly, but happy to talk about the details later on.
Thanks, Antti. Okay, so our next introduction will be, so I'm going to give everyone acronyms. So we went from the real estate guy, and now we're going to go to Troy, and I'll name you the people engagement guy. You can either refute that or make your own name.
No, Johanna, I like that one. It fits me well, and it fits well with what we do at HealthSpace. So thank you, and hello everyone. As mentioned, I'm Troy Pfeffer, VP of Partnerships and Strategy at HealthSpace. So what is HealthSpace? Well, you got a little flavor of it in the workspace that you were invited to. But HealthSpace is more than just a website. We like to say that HealthSpace is shaping the future of work through the better engagement of people. Think about this. We're talking about the future of workplaces today. Well, the reason we're talking about that is because the future of work is in the midst of a major change. It's rare that we recognize big changes when we're in the midst of them. It's only after we've gone through the change and look back and say, wow, that was a big shift, a big change in what we do. Well, I think we can all agree that we're in the middle of that right now. But what is changing? Well, what is changing is how people engage with one another, especially in the workplace. The pandemic, as bad as it was, forced an experiment of sorts, if you will. Could work be done virtual, remote, a mix of hybrid, or a mix of in-person and remote, a combination of factors. And there's a lot of learning that came out of that. And interestingly, right before the pandemic hit, Deloitte put out a fascinating study on this topic of engaging people in the workplace. Bottom line is it's not good. A couple statistics for you. We all like numbers. Oh, I like numbers. Hopefully you like numbers. On a global basis, 85% of all employees are not engaged. Think about that. 85% of all employees are not engaged. They simply go to work, do what they have to do, and get out. 85%. There's a tremendous cost associated with that. This is a US number. Low employee engagement costs companies upwards of $500 billion in lost productivity. All because employees aren't engaged. They're not engaged. But some companies might say, well, I put out employee surveys. I do an annual survey. It's a really nice one. Oh, it's fancy, color and graphs and such. Well, the problem with that is 87% of employee feedback is not acted upon. So any feedback that's coming in, filed away. Survey done, move on. So there's a problem in the workplace today. And it's that fundamental aspect of employee engagement. But there are some companies who are adapting. We are seeing companies that are adapting today to this idea of better engagement. Employees who feel their voice is heard, who simply feel that their voice is heard, they perform 4.6 times better. Think that one employee, if their voice is heard, they perform almost 5 times better than before. A second number, companies with a highly engaged workforce are 21% more profitable. 21. What company would not want to increase their profits by 21%? Engage your employees. I know it sounds simple, but again, we're going through that fundamental shift. And here's what I mean by that. HealthSpace as a company has been around for over 20 years. It was created by some folks who were focused on employee engagement, just engagement in general. How can we bring people together better? And then the technology came along. I like to say, as an American, I kind of prefer the Finnish way of technology versus Silicon Valley. So call me a fan of Finnish tech. It's because there was a problem, and then our founders decided there's a solution to that, and that's how HealthSpace was created. So HealthSpace enables people to engage better, and it's simple. In the past, we thought, okay, let's bring everybody together in a room, get engagement, and call it a day. Well, some people don't like to engage that way. Some people engage better when they're alone, in private, at night. Everybody's different. So why not give people the opportunity to engage as they like? So HealthSpace as a platform, as a product, as a service enables that. You can engage people wherever they are and whenever they are. That's how we increase employee engagement. So I'm very excited to be here today and look forward to questions and participation.
Thank you so much, Troy. Now, the next one that I will showcase and spotlight would be Kelly from Kone, and I'm going to give you the name of the movement guy. You can change that if you want.
I'm good with that. That's what we do. Actually, I can open up by supporting Troy. We've had a lot of global Kone meetings throughout this year to keep us all connected, and we are using HealthSpace. Kone has adopted HealthSpace. So thank you, Troy. My name is Kelly Leitch, and I have the privilege of leading the Canadian business for Kone Elevator and Escalator. I can speak a bit about as an employer, what we've gone through and where we head, but also mainly as the movement guy, I can speak about how we are seeing our customers' needs changing very rapidly, particularly in the office space. In Canada, we are absolutely a major company, and Kone came into Canada in 1985, but as many will probably know, Kone has been around since 1910. We operate the service of elevators, the modernization and the construction of all new elevators from coast to coast in Canada, with about 1,100 employees. What's interesting for us when the pandemic hit is over 800 of our employees are not office-based. They're in our customers' buildings every day. So the challenges we all faced to realizing how could we keep business going and supporting our customers is how do we keep our people safe, informed, and on customer sites throughout. We're faced with early challenges. How do we get our people safely on the site to support buildings where there's been COVID outbreaks? How do we make sure they have as much information as each individual needs? Those are some early challenges for us. But as many of our leaders realized, the ability to work outside of our offices has always been there for us because we don't have too many elevators in our own offices, and we don't have too many customers that are located in our offices. They're all outside. So I was really proud to see how we very quickly as a company, and then to say as an industry, we pivoted. But we had to very quickly understand our customers' changing needs, whether it was retail. How do we work differently to even support retail as they were going through changes and shutdowns? Hospitals, how do we keep hospitals in priority functioning throughout this time? Absolutely, people living in their homes. How do they feel safe using elevators every day? And then, as I mentioned, a major impact is offices. So how do we help customers plan for the utilization of their transport throughout their buildings? We've been working on many things in recent years, and I think as everyone would agree, this pandemic caused us to accelerate. So in the basic delivery of services of keeping elevators operational, we were always very pleased to have a good preventive maintenance program. But with our connection to digital, Kone is actually helping lead the way to connect all of our elevators globally to the cloud. We are working actually initially with IBM, and now we're working with Amazon. And we are now connecting, even in Canada, thousands of elevators, which allows us to move forward to truly predictive services. So we are able to understand what an elevator is doing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and sending us signals of things that might cause a slowdown in traffic or an elevator out of service. So we are finding the new ways to get to elevators before they go out of service with this information and changing the way we service a building. That's pretty exciting for us, considering the old model of just coming in for a regular service and leaving. And if it breaks down the next day, well, we come back. So that's been really exciting. Obviously, because of it being a public space, how do we provide customers with information of how do they keep their elevators clean? How do we help them in ventilation of an elevator cabin? How do we help people riding escalators to sanitize the handrails? We had to educate our people of what we had available and then our customers very quickly. But some of the new technology that's helping us even carry forward is offices will not be populated the same way again. The morning rush will not occur. We've already seen staggered timings of people coming in because of their own personal choices of when they want to work. But we've helped a lot of buildings understand how to plan for the traffic and how does it change so we don't have lobbies full of people and we have safe rides throughout. Another part of just the technology that we're able to bring forth in a very quick manner that our customers are demanding of us is we are now with different applications. We have now the ability to, people do not have to touch another elevator button again as many times as they ride an elevator. You can engage through your phone with all of our elevators. So that's exciting, but we need to make sure we keep understanding how our customers' needs change in the environments that we're working in and how do we support them. So I hope I can answer some questions as we go forward. But as an employer, I see the change. Troy, maybe you're right. It's forever changed, and we're right in the middle of it. But as we come through the pandemic, our basic needs to define what does flex work look like? How do we do that? What does flex work look like for technicians that we count on every day and staying engaged with our customers? So these questions are all, I will be interested and curious to hear a lot of good feedback today. Thank you very much, Johanna.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, for our final introduction will be Bart from Halton, and I will call you the fresh air guy. You can change that.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Johanna. So my name is Bart Koniecek, and I am responsible for spearheading sales, Halton sales in Canada, and it's been a wonderfully challenging task. And there is a lot of demand for clean air, and much like Troy, I'm a numbers guy. I love stats, so I'll throw a couple things at you to mull over in a second. But before I get into that, I actually wanted to mention Antti and Spacent. And when we decided to partner with Spacent to do more of a hybrid style workplace, I didn't realize, Antti, that we were actually tackling a very similar problem in two different ways. You talked about all these empty spaces, empty offices that now we're going to have to find a way to fill, and the demand for that because of COVID. At the same time, Halton looks at this from a building demand or ventilation demand control system perspective. What happens if somebody isn't at the office or an office isn't being occupied? We really have to take into consideration that buildings in themselves are massive CO2 contributors into the environment. So what we can do from a demand control perspective is really ensure that if a space is unoccupied and it's not being rented at the moment, or there isn't an employee to occupy that space, there's no need to deliver clean air that has to be conditioned, has to be heated, and that utilizes energy to keep that space comfortable. However, through the innovation of different types of management software, an employee can very easily book and say, hey, I'm going to be using that space. And 30 minutes beforehand, we can turn on the ventilation and bring in a lot of the fresh air in there. The other thing to keep into consideration using different types of sensors, there's a wonderful opportunity there to ensure that, hey, if somebody was just in that space, let's not make it available for the next 30 minutes. Let's allow that fresh air to come in, dilute whatever pathogens or viruses might be in that space, so that when somebody does come to work there, ergonomically, it is a very safe and safe place for that employee to work and have a good time. So speaking of that, let's get a little bit into statistics as we talk about who is Halton, right? So a little stat I want to throw at you is people spend around 90% of their time indoors. That is crazy to me. I mean, we have all this beauty outside, but yet, when we sleep, we're sleeping indoors. When we're working, for the most part, we're working indoors. So keep that in mind that, we cannot control the outdoor climate, but we can make a difference in indoor environments, enhancing people's well-being and productivity. So that's really important to note. Every one of us needs about 12,000 liters of fresh air every single day to breathe. And obviously, as a result of that, indoor environments play a critical role in people's health and well-being, right? So what is Halton all about? Well, we enable people's well-being in demanding indoor environments. We provide end users with safe, comfortable, and productive environments that are energy efficient and comply with sustainable principles around the world, whether it's the WELL design or other LEED and other types of certifications. It's really about, hey, how do we provide that clean air, but still be responsible citizens, right? Be good to the environment and do this in a responsible way that doesn't increase our carbon footprint. And a lot of that can be implemented through the demand control type ventilation. We are engaged with customer projects from the design phase to implementation and use. So, I mean, everything from the office all the way to the rooftop, the equipment that supplies that clean air, we take care of all of that. And the truth is we can't do this all ourselves. I mean, we have a phenomenal R&D facility, and I think we do a spectacular job at bringing new products to market. However, there's so many amazing organizations out there, and through our Halton Foundation, which is a charitable organization, we fund lots of non-for-profits that are trying to improve indoor air quality for everybody. Right. And this is the one thing that really gets me excited about Halton. And I feel like it's a perfect fit for my personal beliefs in terms of sustainability and protecting the environment, really incentivizing other companies and supporting them through grants and other things to really help improve indoor air quality while ensuring that we are carbon neutral and that we keep a good CO2 balance within the workspace. So thank you very much. I really look forward to having a productive conversation, as everybody else has mentioned.
Thank you so much, Bart. So at this point, this is going to be an open panel discussion now that the intros have been done. And we already actually have one question or two questions in the Zoom chat. And I believe, Kelly, you already addressed that, but maybe I could start with you when it comes to in filters and safe air in elevators. Maybe you can explain the question and the answer as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think as many people know, that traditionally we just had a small single speed fan on top of an elevator. And we've been challenged in being able to come back with a much improved filtration system that we can mount on top of existing elevators, higher speed fans, and even, as I described, germicidal lighting. Also, just in the public space of an elevator, as I mentioned, you look at the car operating panel, and that's always been a place of high contact, and as well, people being concerned about even traditional transfer of germs. So, as I said, trying to be responsive, the applications we can offer is you can step into a cabin and not have to touch any buttons, anything. There are also products that can be applied to buttons that are actually almost completely self-cleaning. So it's a matter of engaging ourselves with our customers and listening to what their needs are. So how do we want to upgrade their assets, and how can we bring that solution forward? Definitely filtration and cleaning has been a big part of our asks in elevator cabins. Yeah.
Thanks. So clearly, we've heard from all four of you that really you're thinking ahead, you're shaping how workplaces are going to be in the future, and either you're adapting them, you're redesigning them, or you're reimagining them in its entirety. Could I have each of you speak to sort of what your ideal vision of the workplace is for now and in the future? Maybe I'll start with Antti. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I just put a question there, just like the future engagement. The biggest question probably at the moment is that do you need to commute 5 days a week downtown or to headquarters in order to engage with your colleagues? I really like the engagement talk by Troy. and so on, because it's like in Finland, it's been a different lockdown. We have had some minor lockdowns, but people have lived quite freely, normal life. But of course, the offices has been closed quite a bit. What we have seen in Helsinki metropolitan area, that bedroom communities, we don't really have like it's a lot smaller place than GTA, but the kind of like the local places have been very vital during the lockdowns. People are meeting locally. I have actually met a lot of clients here where I live close by, and that's been super interesting in a way. Just like in the future, what is the biggest impact of COVID-19? I personally believe that people don't want to commute to downtown 5 days a week, especially in London or in GTA. Waste of time. People have seen the light that, okay, you could have like 3 or 4 hours spare time and kind of like organize your life differently. I don't know if Johanna answered the question, but I was so thrilled to actually put another one here.
Absolutely. Troy, actually, maybe you can respond to that, since he talked about engagement, which is it's so nice that we're reimagining how we can do that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And to answer the question, the ideal workplace, well, in my mind, it's simple. The ideal workplace is the place where you get the most out of your people. That may or may not be a physical locale. It may be. We were talking earlier. Some of us are very social, very extroverted, very outgoing. We like to be with other people. There are others who are not like that. One's not right, one's not wrong. It's just different. So why not create an environment? And again, I use that term loosely. Create an environment, a mechanism, multiple channels where you can get the most out of your people, and you do so by making them feel comfortable. Put them in an environment where they can do their best work. And again, maybe it is an office location, but then again, maybe it's not. Maybe it's someone in their slippers and pajamas sitting on their bed with a laptop. That's where they do their best work. Allow them to do it that way. So to me, this is a fascinating discussion. And Antti brings up a great point. Prior to coming to HealthSpace a little over a year ago, I spent almost 30 years putting on a suit and tie, driving to an office building, doing work on a computer, coming home. First of all, I hate suits and ties. I hate doing that. I hate them. Secondly, it's such a waste of time commuting. That is lost productivity that you could be doing something else with. So again, I think we're in that midst of that fundamental shift. On the other side is going to be amazing. It's going to be wonderful because we're going to engage people like they want to engage.
Absolutely. Bart, what about you? Troy touched on the comfort of people, and that is, air quality. I cannot imagine something that's not fundamental to that point. What is your vision for the workplace?
Great question. So, at Halton, we truly believe that airborne infections and pandemics need to be taken into account when designing and operating ventilation in new buildings and renovation projects. Really, as I mentioned before, we're all about promoting well-being, safety, and sustainability, right? And because buildings consume a significant part of energy and are a source of CO2 emissions, and most of us spend about 90% of our time indoors, we want to stay safe and feel well while being indoors, right? So the future workplace should be safe for the user, promote physical and mental well-being of people through well-designed ventilation, lighting, acoustics. In addition, we want to do this in a way that allows for a low carbon footprint to ensure that we have a balanced approach to all of this, right?
Absolutely. Looking at the comment in the chat, isn't it about a change in leadership? Like, what is now our challenges to reaching this ideal? Maybe I'll open it up to any of the 4 panel members who want to address this.
I think that we've had conversations in recent years as a traditional supervisor-employee relationship, it used to be judged by presence, physical presence, as opposed to performance. And if we can talk, the change of leadership is what just prompts me to say this. This is going to challenge our employees and our supervisors or our managers to have a different conversation about how they work. So you are now measured by your performance, not by your physical presence. And as I said, the test drive through the pandemic is not only did the wheels not fall off in our business, we became far more productive. Now, the sustain has to come with the right leadership for managers to be able to have an engaged conversation with an employee to say, you as an individual, how do you work best? How does it, especially we've had the last year to say what worked, what didn't for you. It is going to challenge the manager to be a leader. And this kind of, and we need to, as the leader of the Canadian business, I have to challenge them to say, are you prepared to have those conversations? Do you know how to have those conversations? It used to just be, yeah, they come into work every morning, they're on time, they're pleasant, and then they go home. These are changing absolutely the conversations that our managers are expected to have. That level of trust will go up, and we're not going to get it right every time. We are not, but that they need to be understanding that we got to support them to have those conversations. Yeah.
Kelly brings up a great point, and it's the idea of trust, right? Leadership historically has been one of control. And here in the I'm located in the US. Unfortunately, the vast majority of leaders still see their responsibility as control. So that has to change. It has to change dramatically. And one of the ways that it can change is that we move from focusing on performance, measuring performance, to creating value. Now, let me explain. So this idea of performance, you do this, and I'm going to measure you. If you do it, great. Well, again, we talk about this shift in work. There's this shift to going from performance to creating value. Anybody can create value. No matter what you do in the course of a day, you have the opportunity to create value for your organization. So leaders of the future are the ones who will recognize it's more than measuring your performance to helping you identify new value for the company. And when an entire group of employees are focused on creating value, then the entire organization benefits immensely.
One of the aspects that has been kind of like HR issues and leadership. Of course, during the pandemic, we have seen a lot of HR cases. People are suffering quite a bit. And one of our clients, he was a CFO. He had really nice talk about the remote working. He said that it's like offering candy to the people. If you ask them this, do you want to eat candy? Everybody say, yes, we want in the future to work remotely. However, the thing is that during the pandemic, when people have seen each other, there are less like HR issues and so on. People need to have like physical encounters and teamwork, and that's the thing. But of course, the tricky thing is now, how do you combine those in the future? How do you actually manage all that? In just like, when do we meet at the headquarters? Does it happen on Wednesday? Thinking from the building utilization point of view, it's just like you size your headquarters on Wednesday meetings. Then you have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. When it's open, there are so many issues that needs to be handled. And of course, the physical space is only one aspect. There are HR, ICT issues, and so on. So it'll be super interesting to see what the new normal will be, how it's going to be look like.
It's interesting. I'm really hearing a lot about change. And what I think is interesting is, even when we talk about the environment, we all know and we all see what's going on out there, but it's still so hard to push through, get people on board and make that change. And really, as I think about Halton's vision of providing quality air for everybody, we face some of the same obstacles, whether it's real estate and construction markets being really slow to change and adapt to new ways of working. We really need to adopt and design new practices. And I think there's a lot of research that backs what we're trying to do here, right? Whether it's increasing the airflow to dilute the pathogens and the particulates that are in there. Again, I think that we all have to work together, whether it's real estate, to really accomplish this goal of providing a healthy workspace for everybody, whether that's at home, whether that's at Spacent's offices, right, across the country, across the world, really, or in our own offices, right? That it comes down to all of us to make and insist on change, right? The same way we all say, hey, I want an ergonomic chair so my back doesn't hurt. You know, I want the proper kind of keyboard and mouse. You know what? I want air in my building that will ensure my safety and that I can feel well and be well.
Actually, Bart, you mentioned in your intro that did you say you have a partnership with Spacent?
Yeah, so we recently, I know in Finland, we've been working with them. And then recently we just were speaking with the Canadian operations and, you know, really to introduce, you know, I love everything that Troy is saying. When it comes to engagement, I mean, we can force people to come in for 8 hours a day and they can give us 2 hours of productivity, right? Or we can ensure that our employees are happy and they give us as much productivity as they can possibly muster in a day, right? So part of that, and really coming from a more traditional way of thinking where we have people come into the office, we're trying to explore more of a hybrid approach, right? Hey, maybe there is an office down the road from one of our engineers where he can pop in and he can work there. I think work from home is wonderful. However, there's a challenge. What happens when you have kids that are at home as well? What happens when you have a spouse? What happens when there's other things happening? You may want that flexibility of not having to commute. However, the home may not always be the ideal place. And I think this is where Spacent really has come up with an innovative solution for everybody.
Thank you, Bart. That's what we believe in, because it's like our experience working like a year and a half from home. It's been suffocating in a way, in many ways, and just like you need to go out. And what we believe that after the pandemic, people really need to go out. But of course, there are issues like commuting. Do you want to always go to the downtown and spend them? Because I have some friends that are kind of executives, and I have been asking that, do you go to the office? And the answer is, yeah, 2 or 3 days a week. And the answer, then I asked why, because we have a gym at the office, because I like the gym there. So that's the main reason for going into the office, because of the gym. So that's super interesting. But of course, we have been very productive during the pandemic when it comes to work and meetings, and so even too productive in many ways, and just people are working too hard.
There was a question from the audience, to Antti. What will happen to the empty office spaces? Are there investment opportunities in other areas?
That's really interesting. We talk a lot. We have clients, a lot of large building owners, and kind of like half of them are saying it's going to get back to the old normal. People will need more space, but I don't personally believe in. I think that the bigger the metropolitan area, the bigger the change. If you think about GTA area, where you have a lot of like the office stock in downtown, it's huge. Bedroom communities, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, for example, in shopping centers that recently suffered from online shopping and so on. I personally believe that those shopping centers are great opportunity to develop them for co-working locations and people to go to the grocery store and meet each other and so on. But of course, it depends on the city and the market quite a bit. But one of the good sides of the pandemic is like environment. 40% of all the global CO2 emissions actually came from building and the maintenance of the buildings and so on. I personally believe that in the future, we're not going to build that. We are going to be quite picky with the new projects and so on, building new skyscrapers and so on, like pouring concrete all over the planet and so on. So there might be very positive things as well if you look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, pouring concrete to our next point about cities and cities being full of concrete. Many cities face the problem of how to bring people back. How do you help them is the question from the audience.
I'll start with that, because fundamentally, I would answer that with a question. Why? Who's to say that that city environment was the most conducive to the needs, not only of the company, but the person at that company, right? I forget who, I think Antti mentioned bedroom communities. We call them suburbs here in the States. Listen, I live just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. It is much smaller than GTA. Even still, I do not want to go down there. I just don't. I don't want to go into the city center. If I do, it might be on the weekend or off hours. So maybe there's a solution there. I think what we need to do is step back and ask more fundamental questions. Was the old way the right way? Is there now a better way? If you want to go to the city center, to these buildings, does it have to be between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday? Some people like to work in the evenings. Some like the weekends. I think it's important that we step back, ask these fundamental questions, and almost treat it like a reboot. Okay, let's rethink things. You know, how can we help those that own real estate? How can we help those that are located in city centers? How can we help the employees out in the suburbs? Let's not force people to do something they don't want to do. Let's figure out new ideas.
Yeah. And to Kelly's point earlier, what I love about reimagining this future is the ability to, for example, connect data points and the management software that kind of is and allows things to be put in place. Like Kelly, you were mentioning things about the population patterns and how you're kind of Kone is changing. Even the cities, obviously, with the elevators being in place, changing that infrastructure just based on data points. And so you can still encourage that, movement back in when you have a kind of a different way to approach, for example, the maintenance of elevators.
When you think about being in a traditional office, we would book a meeting room. I have a meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock and it's available, and that's great. We're actually helping with planning of these office spaces. The same thing extending right through to basic people flow, meaning you wish to enter the building at 9 p.m. at night for a certain reason, and you can book that. And not only from a security and safety, that that your transportation up through to that meeting room that you booked has been set for you, not for others. And so you're going to have less of a building load. It's much more spread throughout the cycle of the 24 hours. And we can absolutely, you're right with data. Everyone talks about massive big data. Yes, we're going to have to figure out is more data better? But what we're excited about is that we can, for the first time, help buildings understand how their buildings are actually being used. And we're amazed when we can offer them this information, the insights that the building owners, they didn't even know about their space. They had no clue. So that's really where we're actually going to be adding a lot of value. And I think the changes are going to be only beginning as we come through the rest of this pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never did like getting in a crowded elevator, even though they're a pretty big part of my life.
One question from the audience, I'm just reading it here. Do you think transforming office buildings to residential would be a good solution, as people would like to live in the city, for example, in Helsinki or Toronto?
As a real estate guy, that would be a great solution, but it's super expensive solution to kind of like it's more cost efficient to actually demolish the building and then build a new one, to be honest. And just like it's been tricky, and just like hotels and apartments, residential buildings, that it's many times it's a very like a tough equation, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting question, and I think it almost ties back to the one that was asked previously around bringing people back. And I believe it really comes down to choice, right? Giving people the choice. Some of us may not feel comfortable in that environment, others may. Some people may prefer to have big group collaborations that may be a little bit tougher to achieve online, although we're doing a beautiful job of that today. But really, it sparked a thought because we're thinking about, can we change it to residential? I would rethink it. Could we change it into spaces that incentivize people to come back? I really think back to a good friend of mine, a CEO of a prominent company in Toronto and generally Canada. They actually went with full flexible work offices before the pandemic. And they found something similar too, where it's like once people went, they wanted a way to still give people the choice to come back if they feel like collaborating, if they feel like interacting with people, to come back in. So they rethought it. They built a pub in the middle of the office that opens at 4 p.m. They built a full racetrack all the way around. So they built a full gym facility, yoga. So it came down to, hey, we're no longer going to have as many people coming into the office. So how do we reimagine the space in a way that incentivizes employees to come back and still participate?
Absolutely, and that was coming out in the comments as well. Marianne mentioned physical human interaction. There is no doubt that we obviously still need that as human beings, and even in a working force or kind of as a working group. I mean, it's all about building that social capital amongst humans, because really, you can't have an employee team without that social human interaction and the social capital that comes about by those social interactions. So Bart, that idea of having a pub in the middle of the office sounds fantastic to me. We have about 4 minutes left before we do the breakout sessions. And I just wanted to get a quick comment from each of you of what has been the most surprising thing that you've learned in this last year. And we'll close on a comment from each of you, and then I'll explain the breakout groups after that. Whoever wants to start. What's the most surprising thing you've learned in the last year?
Should I start?
Sure, Antti.
Yeah, I think that it's the human nature and how quickly can we adjust into the kind of like this kind of pandemia and to the new normal. So I think that this pandemia has accelerated so many things. Especially the HR issues and also real estate management, leadership, and so on. That has been so surprising. And of course, many things has happened like globally. Like before in the history of kind of like all people, there has been some countries have done something, but suddenly everybody's going through the same thing. So that has been super amazing.
I'll go ahead. I'll follow up with something that surprised me was the power of the asynchronous. Up until a year plus ago, I used to think that great creativity, great collaboration happens when people get together at the same time. Brainstorming, ideas come. And yes, that can happen. But this past year has taught me if you add in the asynchronous, in other words, allowing people to be creative and to collaborate on their own while connected with others, you just boost that creativity and collaboration even more so. So the power of asynchronous, that's the thing that really surprised me over the past year.
I can just only comment from our own company. We already had all the tools we needed prior to facing the pandemic, but it was only the pandemic that actually forced everyone's hand to now we shift to go. So it's unusual of me to say a positive out of COVID. However, I do absolutely believe that we've proven to ourselves that we do not need to ever go back to the very traditional closed-minded way of working. So that's been a positive for us.
I mean, from Halton's perspective, it really, because we are as you said, the air company, really comes down to some of the studies that came out. And obviously the studies confirm that COVID is spreading through small aerosols. So making the indoor air environment safer, we should be applying more outdoor air. higher airflows indoors, and still do that in a sustainable and efficient way through demand control. But I would say the biggest surprise has been that, the real estate industry in general has been very slow to react and to implement some of these changes. And I know some of that is obviously coming from a cost-based perspective, but at the end of the day, happy employees are productive employees, and a healthy, safe work environment goes a long way towards ensuring future growth and prosperity. So,
very interesting reflections. So, although this event will continue, I will thank all of the speakers from my behalf on participating in this, what was a really interesting discussion on the future of workplaces. The event will continue though, so I'll just share my screen to just give you a little snapshot of what the breakout rooms will be. So, based on our conversation and the variety of panel members that we have, I've divided it out into the mind and the body. So what does that mean? Just based on our poll that we had, a lot of people seem to be wanting to talk more about how to engage people in the remote workforce, and how does, for example, one onboard culture, that social human capital here that we were talking about earlier. So breakout group number 1 is called the mind. So themes in this group will be on feeling connected when working remotely, onboarding culture for new employees, and how to keep people engaged. And so naturally, the person who will be a speaker in this room will be Troy. And I've also put Antti's colleague, George, who is the Toronto representative of Spacent, also into that group. The second breakout is called the body. And so the themes of that, the speakers, of course, of that is the fresh air guy, the real estate guy, and the movement guy, Bart, Antti, and Kelly, to kind of round out what it means. What are the implications to the body in terms of our work environment from a body perspective, but also the workspace? What are things that employers have to take into consideration when they are addressing both the pandemic and the changes that have kind of brought out for an employer perspective, but also the actual office space. So you'll now have a chance to choose one of these breakout sessions, and we'll be going into the breakout sessions for 20 minutes. And after that, we'll kind of bring you back into the main group to do our final reflection.
Welcome back. Okay, are we all here?
Yes, we're back from the body side. The body
Body is back. How about mind?
Yeah. Body is back.
We solved all the problems of the mind. We're good. Amazing.
Did you have an out-of-body experience?
Yes.
I guess you are having too much fun. All right. So, Johanna, do you want to summarize?
I think we have it. The mind and the body are reunited, and we have solved the problems. No, one thing that would just kind of, out of all of the discussions today, one thing that's really, actually, I'll use Troy's quote at the very end of our session was, "The genie cannot be put back into the bottle." We cannot go back to the old way of doing work. And it's nice and refreshing to see that, this has kind of stirred the pot and really allowed us to rethink what work is, how do we engage with people, and what the workplace is like, and how can we make things more efficient? Because of course the office and the workplace is not going to disappear. We need to come together as humans, and that's obviously not going to change. But being able to have that choice, and all of the things that are opened up with choice, it's just a really positive thing. And if there is a silver lining out of this COVID pandemic, it is that people have been able to rethink what is possible. So it was a really interesting conversation.
Thank you. On my behalf, I would like to thank all the speakers, Troy, Kelly, Bart, and Antti, for your precious time and sharing your thoughts, as well as Johanna facilitating this discussion, and Jacques also helping out in the other breakout room. What I would like to share with you in terms of what is coming up with CFCC. So our next event would be a live one. So traditionally, Swedish, Danish, and Finnish Chamber of Commerces have been organizing a Nordic Consular Cup golf tournament in September. And this year, it is our responsibility as Finns to organize the golf tournament this year. So we will be reaching out to you in terms of inviting you to play, as well as there's some sponsorship opportunities for the businesses, get some visibility at the golf course. And secondly, CFCC is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. So this is huge. We've been around since 1971, and we really hope to organize a live event around this one as well. So let's see how the reopening is happening and what's the phase like. If not by the end of this year, but latest next year, we would like to organize a live event. So inviting everyone, members, non-members, part of the community, to this one as well. Johanna, any last words?
Just, I'll be sending out an email from the workspace that we were using. So we'd love to get your feedback on how the event went, and also for future webinars or live events that would be taking place in the future. We'd love to hear your feedback on that. So look out for the email from a HealthSpace email. Just do check your junk mail or your spam folder in case you don't receive it. But thank you from my part for attending and for a fascinating conversation. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
And happy Father's Day.
Thank you, Marika.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
All right, take care, everybody.
Pleasure.
Thank you.